Hello, everybody. Welcome from the wonderful Mittweida in Germany. It's not a hub of the ERN Conference, so we are doing a little bit of a takeover. But we had here recently the academic autoball attack, where a couple of universities, like my University of Agder, Tallinn University, Leipzig University, Zwickau University, and obviously Mittweida, were playing Rocket League against each other, and also the idea behind it, producing the whole event with students, done by students, commentated by students. And that's the cool part where I have two people here, Niklas and Johannes, who had to work yesterday a long time, and now they still have to work. And that is something where let's introduce you each other.
All right. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Niklas. I am a student here at Mittweida. I study media technology, and I'm in my second year now. And I also work for Uniliga, which is the German university esports provider. So some people might have heard of the university esports in Germany. Uniliga is probably the most prolific esports tournament provider in Germany for university esports. And I am mainly responsible for most of the stream content. So whenever we do any streams, I'm responsible for whatever is happening on screen, not directly, but more in a broader sense of having to prepare people to be able to produce those broadcasts.
Yes, and I'm Johannes. I'm also a student of Mittweida. I'm at the moment in my first semester of the media management master degree. And so planning to finish this in the next years. Of course, I'm here in Mittweida for 4 years, I think now. Finished my bachelor degree here too. And I'm on part for HSV Esports, our esports organization. Here for the university, I started as a coach and analyst, made it up to be a player, played for a couple of years. And also tried hosting shows and casting, so moderating. And yeah, that's a nice one. So I can give you the point of view for a player. And yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting from coach to player. Definitely a normal procedure.
Surely.
Yeah, but it's really interesting when you're talking about here what is happening at HSMW Mittweida. For those who are seeing that, Community of the Year 2024.
Yeah,
so just recently. So congratulations on that.
I guess we are doing something right.
Yeah, but that's why you're also here, because that is something where, today we already heard a lot of research topics around various topics around everything, be it psychology, I was a bit occupied here a little bit. But yeah, those are the things where with the ERN conference or ERN, we are trying to show different topics from a different cultural perspective. And yeah, currently we are in the EMEA hub, so a little bit more European focused. But that is the part where what we are also seeing in research, that there is currently a little bit more focus on collegiate esports in the US. And sure, US has a unique system, same with the UK. Both of them are a little bit more expensive than be it the German system. And that's why we want to talk about the collegiate esports system in Germany, especially with Uniliga being here for a long, long time. But let's start with one thing where you already told, where like you have a background in production, you are coach, player, host, and probably a lot more. But that is something where what I always find fascinating about esports, you can try around, you can test, you can try skills you might not know that you have. But what would be something where you say, especially to students, what are skills that you say, I learned that in esports and it is perfect for the corporate world?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, especially because I made exactly that experience. I started studying a media-related field in 2018, so 7 years ago now, at the university in Bayreuth. And there were a couple people there that were interested in esports, not too many. I think we were about 10 people in our esports group at the time. But I came at a fairly fortunate point for the esports organization, because about a year after I started there was an influx of people interested in esports, and all of a sudden we had about 20, 30 people who were interested and wanted to do something, organize tournaments, organize their own teams to participate in the Uniliga, for example. So when I started studying there, I wasn't yet part of the Uniliga, I was just a student. And that was really interesting, because it was sort of the beginning of the university esports organization there. So we had to figure out everything by ourselves. We didn't have anyone to teach us how to lead an esports organization, to teach us how to organize events. So we had to figure all that stuff out. And it meant that especially people that were involved with organizing events had to learn how to communicate with vendors, to organize hardware, or how to communicate with people that were responsible for the locations that we wanted to do events in, because we had to host 30, 50 people sometimes, and we wanted to do a watch party for the League of Legends World Championship, for example. That was always very popular. And so we had to learn a lot of those things that now we can apply to whatever we're pursuing. So I still know a lot of the people that work there. So obviously I'm not in Bayreuth anymore, but quite a few of the people that started there are still there. And the esports organization that we founded back then, where we were like 10 to 20 people, has now blossomed into an organization that's, I think, host to more than 100 people. And it's a, I don't know what the English translation would be, but it's an eingetragener Verein, so it's a proper organization.
Association.
Yeah, it's an association. And they're organizing proper events, and the people that started the esports organization back then, obviously they're out of uni now, but they're in roles that they can apply their skills to that they learned there. One of them actually became a project manager after starting as an events organizer for the esports organization, even though they were studying something that didn't really have anything to do with that. That didn't matter. It was the passion and the blood, sweat, and tears that went into organizing these esports events that led them to now doing projects for, I don't know the company, but some company. Yeah, so that's absolutely an experience that I've made, and yeah. How about you?
Well, it's kind of similar here in Mittweida. When I joined HASM Esports, I think it was like a team of 20 persons. We had one esports team for League of Legends, and just a team of social media managers who try to learn, well, what can you do with an esports team? How can you promote it? What are the possibilities? Also, what you should do, and what's working? And well, that expanded. We have now like 7 to 8 esports titles and over a dozen teams. We now have, I think, about 200 members. So, well, the growth was insane too. And well, if a structure like this grows that fast, you also have to think about, okay, how can we communicate with our community, with the players, but also in our teams? So that's always, well, it's kind of a struggle if you're new to it, because sometimes something gets lost, not only in from one person to another, but also if you have to communicate through a different system. And also, how do you assure that every player in the organization has a good feeling playing for you, and it's not like, okay, I'm just one number in a system. So the communication is very important, and also, as you mentioned, you can try something, and if you fail, you didn't lost. Like if you're working for a company and you have a big mistake, then there is money involved and all that stuff. And here it's a bit more chill. So you can try something. If it doesn't work, you can learn from it, and that's very important. For example, well, yesterday I hosted a show, and that's the first time I hosted a TV studio, and dozens of cameras looking at me, and I was like, okay, I'm not sure am I able to do this, but I can just try it, and if it doesn't work, well, I guess it's one bad show, but it's fine. If it works, I know, okay, that could be a possibility for the future. Maybe I can be a professional host someday or stuff like this. And also for our players, they can see, okay, is esports a thing for me? Maybe I want to play semi-professional or professional if I'm that good. And if they are like, okay, it was a nice try. Maybe I played for 1 year, made some learnings from it, maybe communication in a team, or problem solving, always big in esports too. And they have learnings, and if they say, okay, no, professional esport isn't my type of thing, they can just say, okay, it's fine for now. And that's good too.
You are mentioning something really interesting, which I always find so cool, where like you can test, you can try it. And sure, people might not be happy if it fails, but from my experience as well in a university context, sure, it fails. But okay, we tried it, we tested, and it might be always a little bit rough around the edges, but that is something I find really cool where, I mean, when you're saying that was my first time at the stage, I would have not known that. I would have said, okay, that's his 10th gig or something like that. And that is something where, especially at the university, to try. I mean, especially at that age, when I was that age, I didn't know what I was doing. And I did something esports. I did a magazine, totally big flop, but the experience was cool. And that is something which I find so fascinating, especially here at a club like that, where, yeah, you found your love to production, you found your love for hosting or still playing, I don't know. But that is something where, how do you think, especially were helping with Bayreuth growing up, you with HSMW, what are the things where you say, okay, we have to look at that? What are the things where you say, this is something to look after, this is something you still have to know about when you're starting a project like that?
I think it's difficult to pin down because we made a lot of mistakes for sure when we started in Bayreuth, and I'm sure I see the same mistakes now happening with organizations. I mean, there's always new organizations growing everywhere. I think one of the main things that we learned fairly quickly that we had to improve on was especially communication, because I don't want to lean into any stereotypes, but it was an esports club, so there was a couple of gamers trying to organize events, and they weren't exactly the most social people by nature. So we had some troubles in the early stages communicating, and we had to. But I think we figured that out fairly well because we early on started to use project management tools to organize ourselves. So tools like Jira or I don't know what the other one, Miro boards, to try and get that communication down so that we can actually organize events, because that's always going to be probably the most vulnerable point where events just fall apart because departments aren't communicating. And I think that really helped us early on because we had one person who was already familiar with these tools and who pushed for them to be used and who pushed for proper communication to happen. And I think that really helped us push in the right direction, because the esports club might as well have died if we hadn't done some things right. So we for sure had some people who knew what they were doing and who did a lot of the right things. And I think communication was absolutely one of them that we had to figure out fairly quickly to make sure that it wouldn't fall apart.
Yeah, also to go with communication, we also implemented positions so the player knows who they should talk to if there are problems, so they are heard. And also we have weekly meetings with our well, the staff who organizes all the events and everything around it, so we can always be in a discussion to improve. And well, if there's a problem, we can also try to find a solution together, and you don't have to be like a single person always thinking about, okay, now there's another mistake or another thing I have to do. And well, that helps. So also the players have a person they can talk to, a manager, a coach, or just we also divided our departments, like in every esport title there's another person for this title they can talk to and stuff like this. And yeah, I think that helps a lot. So communication. Also, as you mentioned, well, there are some nerds at the beginning, and then later, if the community grows, there are also extroverts and introverts, and they clash. But I mean, for the community, it's important that they can work together. So you have to assure that you mix up those different persons, so that the community can grow and bloom.
It's interesting to hear where you're saying, sure, you need some hierarchy, you need some structure, you need some organization, but also the idea of bringing them together as a community. I find it interesting to hear, especially as with a club like a university club, you have a huge fluctuation where students come in, students finish, students quit. Students also say, okay, I hate that game. We had that in Agder where they were winning the Overwatch Norwegian Championship. And then the next semester we had 0 team. We had no Overwatch team. Everybody were like, yeah, we have to play Marvel Legends now. And we don't have a Marvel Legends now as well. So back to Overwatch. But that's something where how do you keep the stability in there where technically there is no stability?
Yeah, so the structure is very important because, as you say, the fluctuation is great, not only in the team, but also like every member who has a leading role here won't be here in 2 to 3 years, maybe even shorter time. And so you have to communicate very good and have to write down your learnings. If you planned an event and there were some mistakes, you have to write them down so the next person can learn from your mistakes. Or maybe if something worked good, they can use it and maybe improve it even further. So like documenting the things that worked, and so you don't have to do the same thing just to learn.
Yeah. I think documentation is absolutely crucial for most of the organization that goes on inside an esports association. If it's a student organization, I don't think it really matters what type of organization it is. Of course, you're right. In a student organization, there's a lot more turnover just due to the fact that people are only here for a limited time, and it's usually only 3 years, and or I guess with a master's degree, it could be longer, but it always depends. I think probably like 60% of people are only at a university for 3 years. In Bayreuth specifically, I can't really attribute that to much because ever since we started the association properly in 2020, I want to say, the turnover hasn't really happened in the leadership positions. So all the leaders that were there back then are still there, which is impressive. I love it. And it's really cool to watch that because they're still there with the same passion that they had when they started 5 years ago. And of course, our smaller organization started years before that, but the proper association only started in 2020. And so hard to say whether they actually have the infrastructure in place to still support the organization once the turnover does happen, but so far they haven't really had to deal with that because luckily, a lot of very passionate people in place there that can.
And it's interesting that you mentioned Bayreuth. For me, there are a couple of those organizations which are for me always this example which built up the backbone or grassroots esports in Germany, where you had Bayreuth becoming a proper association. Esports Cologne, I think they are the biggest esports organization, at least in grassroots level in terms of membership. Engine Stuttgart, Munich Esports, Berlin Esports, all of them have roots in universities. And that is something where what I always found fascinating, where like they grow that much that they grow out of the university. I mean, HSMV is a different example where they grew as well, but they stayed within. I don't know if it's a super hard question because I have not really the answer on that as well. But where you say, because that's something where the other side of the university, be it the president or similar, is that something where at some point any club needs to have some support, or else they are saying, okay, we are big enough on our own and do our own thing?
It's interesting that you'd mentioned that, because especially in Bayreuth, we had a lot of discussion over whether to separate from the university or not, because when I started there in 2018, we were just a university club. And as we acquired more members and more people became interested in being a part of the organization, we realized that it's going to be difficult to realize events and host tournaments and host teams in the scale that is required for the amount of members that we have without branching out from the university, because it was just limiting. So the problem is that it was limiting to the organization if we were to stay fully university related. So at some point the decision was made to form a proper association and sort of separate from the university. But the support from the university in Bayreuth wasn't actually too big. I will say that here it's a lot more involved, just because of the nature of the University of Mittweida, being such a media-focused university and having an esports course that has probably helped them to be a lot more involved with faculty here. But in Bayreuth, it was always difficult to really be connected to the university, because as with probably most of universities in Germany, there weren't really any people that were very interested in esports. They didn't really want to have anything to do with it. We tried at some point to integrate it more into the Hochschulsport system, so the university sports infrastructure, but we didn't really get anywhere with that. And that was always a struggle. So separating from the university in that regard was freeing to the association in Bayreuth, but it wouldn't have been the same. We couldn't have started it without being at the university first, just because the community was founded there, and we had to find people who were interested in esports, and that was easier to do in a group that was already established, as in like going to the same classes together and finding each other there, than it would have been to try and found it from nothing. So it was definitely important at the beginning, but once we realized that it was sort of holding back the association, they made the decision to not be fully connected to the university anymore. They're still a part of the association now, that obviously we field university teams in the Uniliga, and we still cooperate. I'm sure they still cooperate with the university at some point, but it's not fully a university association anymore.
Yeah, I think that depends hardly on the university, because here we had some leading positions who were very interested in esports, so at the university, of course. So they tried to push esports and helped us build this up. And so we can use the facility, maybe use some technology also. So that helped a lot. And it's always the thing, well, if it holds you back, there is of course like a thing, okay, maybe we should, what was the term?
Separate,
yeah. Separate from that, but well, here in Mittweida it works. Of course, we also thought about like there are possibilities to separate, but it's always hard because you have to follow a lot of law structures, and yeah, you lose the security and the stability of your working system. And well, a lot of students like it our way, because you don't have to pay money to be part of our organization and stuff like this. So it's very easy, and the entrance level is very low for us. So that works great. But I also talked to other universities in Saxony, and they told me, well, they slow us down a lot because the structure of university is slow. If you want to decide something, maybe a big contract or stuff like this, we have to wait a long time to just get a response, and well, that can hold you back. But I think for the beginning of your organization, it's always helpful to work with your university, and well, maybe you can build up on later and separate. But if it keeps on working, you can just stay with them if you have the stability and the freedom also to have your own decisions.
It is an interesting observation where you see a lot of those going out, growing like an incubator somewhat where... Oh, we have chat. I'm looking at the wrong one, so let's do chat first. Deutschland ist ein Land der Vereine, so Germany is a country of associations. For everybody else, the ERN is also an association under German law. Honestly, I'm not sure if that was a good idea, but that's a different topic. But Prime Dad EFX is curious to whether esports clubs are reaching the community level, especially with worldwide trend of more and older gamers. And I guess as a question, can universities play an organizing role for proliferating esports clubs to the community level? So more to everybody.
Yeah, I think, so one of the reasons that Esports University Bayreuth decided to separate from the university was because of funding, because more members and more bigger events and bigger tournaments required more funding, and they couldn't really get that funding from the university at the time, so they had to either get sponsors, which they can't do if they're an esports organization with the university, that's just not allowed, or they had to get membership fees, which were the two main ways at the time that we thought about that we could receive funding, and both of those weren't possible with the university. So that's definitely a thing that we had to think about, because we wanted to engage more with the community and we wanted to expand beyond just university level esports, but they couldn't really achieve that with just the funding, without receiving more funding than we had. So I think that's always going to be a little bit of a conflict there, because, well, depending on what the faculty thinks of esports, there's more or less funding at the university for that sort of club. And without the funding, it's going to be really difficult to reach out to the broader community and to try and go beyond just the university and try and reach beyond that.
And maybe, as we said, it can help you start the community with the university. But I mean, we can't just, it doesn't work in Mittweida for sure, because we have a lot of students, but then also a lot of elderly people in the town. So it isn't interesting for us to open up for the whole city. But I guess maybe in Bayreuth it's different, or in bigger cities where we have a lot of potential customers or potential members. So maybe you can start it at a university level and then build up on it, as we said it. But you have to separate, because why should the university support that you incorporate different members? Because they are not interested. They don't have that much money that they can sponsor just anybody. They want to sponsor their students. So I guess they are not interested in this kind of working situation.
No, it is an interesting topic where, if I look at our university, we are building a university elderly home where nursing is quite big. So that is something where the nurses are training with an actually elderly home, so like a university hospital, and that is something where suddenly it became interesting to look at esports from a more research perspective, to test around. There is a lot of research on the idea, if you have a V in an elderly home, that there is something happening. But that is something where suddenly there is an interest for the university to do that, be it their job as a university, or potentially collaborations or getting funding and similar things. But that is something as well where it becomes quite interesting to see where those clubs are often then for the community, and the community in itself is more than a university. And that is quite interesting to see. And maybe they're bridging to the Uniliga as well, where you obviously have Uni people as your target audience. It also started from a university. If I remember Karlsruhe, that's where the founders started.
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah. The Uniliga started as a fully uni student-driven organization at the University of Karlsruhe Institute for Technology, University of Karlsruhe, and from there developed into a tournament system and then, or a tournament organizer, and then into what we know it as today, the company.
And that is something where, as well, where it's quite interesting to observe that, I mean, that story in itself, my background is business administration, where I, as a KIT, would have said, hey, we have those founders that did that and that amazing thing. But that is something where it's quite interesting to see the strength of esports, where like we have a lot of international people where no university league exists. I find it fascinating. You talked with our Norwegian ones where we are so envious that you have a university league, and then you're thinking about where it comes from. I mean, that is something where, what would you say for people who are like sitting, I don't know, in Italy or somewhere else, how to do it?
I think it's important to engage with the community. I think one of the most important parts of the Uniliga that we need to sustain the ecosystem is to engage with the local communities, because we want to field teams from all over Germany, and we want to field teams from different universities. We need to make sure that we communicate with those universities, and we make sure that as many universities as possible and as many players as possible from different universities know that there's an ecosystem there that they can compete in. Because if it weren't for the players, obviously the Uniliga wouldn't exist. So we need to always make sure that we're communicating with local clubs, that we're promoting local clubs and helping them build their ecosystem. We have the ambassador program, and the Community of the Year award also kind of symbolizes that, trying to always help communities evolve at the different universities in Germany, and trying to get as many people involved as possible so that they can found clubs, and play in teams to compete in the Uniliga. Because obviously, yeah, like I said, otherwise, without the players, there wouldn't be a system there. So I think the first point, the first thing we need to make sure that exists is proper communication between clubs in Germany. I'm not sure how they did it back then when they started the University League in Karlsruhe. I wasn't around back then. It was early for me, but it definitely still is a part that we focus on at Uniliga, to make sure that we try and communicate as much as we can, and we promote events and promote clubs at the universities so that they can continue to field teams and found communities.
Yeah, you can also just start to talk to the different universities so that you can communicate with them. For example, just your region here in Saxony, we know there are active esports teams in the different universities. So if we have an event, or we're planning to do, if we would like to found a university league, we could just talk to our region, and then you have a couple of teams already to build on, and then you can expand. And if you are in a region where there is no such thing, you can just try it. There's always a person who is interested in it, so you can just talk to them and then maybe build on it. You don't need much for the beginning. You don't need big prize pools and sponsoring. You just have to start 1 year, and then you can build up on it. And if you've done it, and you have growing participants, and maybe even the level of gameplay is rising, then there's also interests for sponsors, and different companies who then will help you grow even further.
Yeah, that's a good point. It doesn't matter if you start small. You can start small with a couple of teams, with a couple of people just interested in esports, just competing against each other, and you can just try and keep that going for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and then it develops into a routine. And it's enough if there's one person at a university that's interested in esports. If you can contact them, if you have any way to try and communicate with them, we've seen many times that people have been able to find like-minded people, even though they thought that there were none, at universities that we hadn't even thought of, just because we were able to contact one person, and they found friends who might have wanted to start a team, and then they just came together and founded a team. So because it's a grassroots field, it's a grassroots infrastructure, it's enough if that's one person, if there's two people who are interested in just doing this kind of thing, and then you can grow from there.
Interesting, especially with the idea of grassroots being the main focus of getting communities, which also means that obviously skill levels are quite different. I mean, I remember I was before in the University of Siegen. We had the Siegen Bisons, where at least 2017 they were in the first league, and then they.
Incidents happens.
It happens, but it was quite fun where when they qualified for the first division, our local radio station wanted to do a news bit about it. So the whole day when that was announced in the news, welcome, 5 o'clock at Siegen, and our local club made it into the Bundesliga. But it's sort of, yeah.
But they tried.
They tried, and that was kind of cute. But it's part where it is something as well where it is really great to see that a community then evolves and develops. But I saw where I was the person who helped them to grow and all. Then I went away, and then one student finished, and then the whole club disappeared, technically. This is something where maybe more for you, where like you were in the situations, but the audience you have mostly are researchers that are more in a faculty position. When you're saying, okay, I mean, they are all doing esports research, so I do hope they like esports. But what would you say, what would be something how they can reach a community at their own university? Because it's still, the professor is coming and saying, hey, let's do a Counter-Strike team. What would you say that would be something where how to convince them?
I mean, if you research in esports, you always will know that there are players at your university, and you can just talk to them. If if there is no structure at the moment, you can just talk to them, and they will have a team. And maybe there are also other students, and then you have your first university team. So the entry level is not that challenging, and then you can already build up on it. So you can just try to support it. Then you can go to your university, to maybe some leading figures, and you can ask, maybe, is there maybe a room we can use where they can play? Maybe we can build up a little setup. We can try to streaming and stuff like this. So I think the beginning is not that hard. Maybe the growth will be slow, but I think the possibilities are there. Just talk to your students, and I think they will be glad to help you, because I mean, we are passionate with esports. We like our games, and we try to get not only better, but always try to compete with others, and so we need more of them, and always are eager to build up our communities so we can face better teams.
Yeah, I think what was interesting to us at the time when we were founding the University Esports in Bayreuth, a big driver for people to be interested in it was getting together to play, because most people had only met each other online if they were playing together, and maybe some had visited courses together or had a school together or university together, but the first thing we tried to push for was a location that we could host 5P season or 3P season or however many we needed. I think at the time League of Legends was the most interesting esports for most people. So it was usually 5 that we wanted to get in a room and have them play together in the same location. That was one of the first things we wanted to try and do, to find a location where we could do that and to try and get faculty involved so that we could make sure that we can somehow manage the access to that, because that always... Obviously, if it's a university, there's some bureaucracy involved with that. It's not always going to be easy to have just people going in and out. You have to make sure that there's some structure to that. But that was definitely one of the main drivers in the beginning, getting a room where people could play together and actually meet each other face to face and have that social factor. I'm sure that always depends a little bit on the specific people that you're trying to work with, but that was definitely one of the big things that worked for us. Once we had that location, that team stayed together for quite a while, and at least the core 3, I think, were together for quite a while. And before that, there wasn't really too much organization there because, they just didn't really come together that much.
Yeah, also as you mentioned, the point where you can meet your team, and I know a lot of our teams are now friendships sprung from it, so there are great possibilities if you can just meet them, and so the meeting in person is very important. But also it will be interesting for the university, so they will be eager to help you, because you can reach new younger persons, because of course esports is interesting also to young persons. So you can have new students who say, okay, wait, they have my esports title at the university, they are supporting us. And I mean, for me, when I chose my university, it was interesting, just that I knew, okay, they have they have an esports structure, even if it wasn't big back at the days, but they have something and you can build up on that. And well, it's always good. So marketing for your university.
I mean, that's absolutely something that the University of Mittweida does very consciously, I'm sure.
Yes.
That they make sure to be public about the fact that there's an esports organization here and that they can play in teams, that players can organize themselves in teams and be part of that organization. And I think that works very well for them, because it's definitely in the university esports ecosystem in Germany. Most people who are somewhat involved in it know about Mittweida, because we have a studio here, we have a fairly big presence online, trying to make sure that people know about the fact that they can play in teams here and be part of that organization.
And we are only a small university, so we have a big standing in the community, in the esports in Germany, and so yeah, that can work, and that can be a major point for new students to choose your university.
Yeah, that is something we see as well, where we hear from our other master degrees, for example, people stay at the University of Agder because of the esports program, the esports lab, or just the events. And suddenly we are in a situation where we can compete in fields where other universities are definitely majorly better than us, but they want to stay there. And that is something where the marketing becomes really interesting, especially for the higher ups, where it's not really only about the idea of getting them, sure, that is great and everything, but also keeping them. And that is something which is really interesting to see. But yeah, also something where a little bit more reflective on esports in Germany, where especially in the higher education, we do see that obviously esports is popping up here and there. More and more clubs are in the Uniliga and everything. But at the same time, the education part is dying out, let's say it that way. It is something where you feel that, and people are dealing with that. What are your ideas about how can we shape the higher or the university league system in Germany to grow, to evolve. I mean, especially with Uniliga, that's your business model technically.
Yeah, I think again it comes down a lot to communication. We started a program last year where Uniliga has acquired a sort of minivan that they go to different universities with, and they try and make their presence known there in person instead of just being online, which is again something that I think helps a lot with growing a community, and that's really the most important part. So making sure that people feel like they're part of a community. That's always going to be the most important part of trying to keep that ecosystem growing and going, getting that community feeling, because otherwise if people feel too disconnected from each other, if people don't feel like they're part of a bigger system, they don't really, I feel like the passion doesn't really last unless we make sure that that's the case. So I think that's always going to be a big part of it, trying to show up for people, trying to show them that they're part of a bigger community, and trying to get people together as much as possible as well. We always try to do offline events for people. We always try to help when there's an event at a local university club. We try to help them get that event going and try to make sure that they have the support they need to do that, because that's the only way we can try to keep those communities going.
Yeah, and also like trying out new trends, for example, if there are new game modes or new games, even Marvel Rivals, for example. Well, it's similarities to Overwatch, but well, there was a big hype, so maybe the University League is thinking of, okay, we should maybe have the opportunity so they can play Marvel Rivals in a tournament here, or maybe even a league. And also for, I can say as a League of Legends player, they also implemented new formats of playing. For example, the Fearless format in League of Legends. It was just a small difference to playing the game, but for the players, it was so much comfort. It was outstanding, because in the other leagues you play, it's always the old system, and I am always happy if I know, well, today we play in the University League, because there we have the Fearless format, because it's something new, it's something more interesting. So that's important, that you look at the new trends and implement them. So yeah, that's good too.
No, it's interesting, and it's probably something where we also at some point need to think about mobile esports, because especially with the young generation growing up, I mean, if I talk with 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, it's Fortnite, Roblox, and Minecraft, and Fortnite is on smartphone.
Yeah.
I mean, we are, well, okay. We talked a lot already. Just checking if there are some questions still in the chat. But as long as that is happening, maybe something where for you to wrap it up, your message to students that are out there that are thinking like, I love that game, I love esports, how to utilize that?
I think the most important thing is to, if you have a passion for something, and in this case, hopefully esports, try and do things. Don't talk about getting together. Don't talk about maybe trying to compete in a university league. Do things. Like, for example, if you have two teams that know each other, and maybe there's not a university esports system in that country yet, try and make that known. Try and get your friends involved, and just start, for example, broadcasting games. In this day and age, it's easier than ever to just start up OBS Broadcaster, for example, and start a stream or start a social media channel and make a presence known on there, because as we probably know, you can reach gamers online a lot of the time, and it's difficult to reach people in person. It absolutely is, especially if you're only one person, if you don't really have a community yet. I think you have to start online at some point, and just getting your voice out there, getting your voice on social media, and trying to connect on there first is probably the way to go, and then going from there.
Yeah, also for me, it's just started. It's you will really like it, because the difference playing a university team to play like a normal team, for example, in a league which isn't just for students, you have you try to represent your university, so the sportsmanship is way better, because like you know the other, well, you don't know them in person, but you know, okay, this is now the University of Siegen, this is now the University of Chemnitz, and they won't grieve you, they won't troll you, and they are students too. They know if you have a lot of, if you're, for example, in your exam phase, they know, okay, well, the timing of our game will be a bit tougher, and they will understand it. So it's just great playing with other universities and with other students. So you should really try it.
No, those are really interesting aspects, especially the idea of the pride, where like you are ASMW Mittweida and you are representing them. And I mean, I find it always fun where walking through our university, sometimes I get with some students the feeling that they only have the hoodie or they only have the jersey. They are always wearing that stuff. So that is, I do hope they have other clothes, but I always see them with that. But yeah, that's also the part where I hear a comment out of the chat. Same with the German Esports Association, which are also with the idea of building up grassroots esports by enabling teams, and yeah, over 150 esports clubs in that federation. And that is something as well where stuff like, or the ESPD, the German Esports Association, the Uniliga, the university leagues, they are all hand in hand together. And that is something as well where, I mean, don't really want to talk about esports winter because that is a stupid term, because it's my fourth crisis in esports now. But it is something where every time it shows we have to have a solid basis. And the last 10 years through the Uniliga, through what Mittweida is doing, through Bayreuth, KIT, a really great team as well. All of them did such a fundamental work where the professional esports could build up on that. And that is something where we see a lot of that happening, but we have a solid basis. And the friendships you're building, and I mean, I find it really fascinating to see some of the former Mittweida students going into some careers and all. And yeah, that is something where we are good in time. And the weird part about at least this day, we are before our schedule. That rarely happens in any academic conference. So that means we had this brilliant idea of having a buffer time of an hour to if we are overrun with time. But that means for those people at home, you have an hour time to get some snacks, walk your dog, do whatever you want. And in an hour, we are handing over to Slippery Rock in Pennsylvania. And then our stream is going away. And thank you for your insights. It was a really great pleasure. And Mittweida Germany signing off.